All right, we are live. I think we are live. Yes, we are live. I'll check everything is good. Yeah, I think we should be good. All right, hi.
Hi,
How are you?
doing good.
Can
Surviving.
you, if anyone is in the live chat, let us know how the audio is. And Kay, can you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, so I'm Kay Fellows. I am a pro-life activist. I've been a pro-life activist for almost 7 years now. And I do a lot of work within the pro-life movement, and I do dabble a little bit in politics on the side here and there.
Sweet. And you have a YouTube channel and a Twitter account, and the link to those are in the description. And your YouTube channel is like hasn't been active that much, but you have decided to now be more active on it, so people could look forward to videos on why you're pro-life arguments, and you're a feminist, right? So you're gonna have arguments on that, and you're a libertarian, so you're gonna have arguments on that political stuff,
Yeah.
and you're also just trying to discover where you are when it comes to religion and atheism, but you're right now you're a believer, but you're deciding where you're gonna you used to be a Christian, but now you're moving into different directions. You're not sure where you're gonna land, right? Is
Not
that
really
something?
sure.
Hmm?
I'm not really sure yet. Just kind of putting out feelers, researching, just kind of doing my own thing
Right.
right
So are you gonna have YouTube videos on that as well, or mostly just political stuff?
I am hoping to dabble a little bit in religion eventually at some point. Gonna irritate a lot of people that have followed me for a long time, unfortunately, but I am intending to get into that at some point.
That's interesting. That would be interesting coming from your channel because you know because you're not sure yourself, right? Because if you go to a Christian channel, you're going to get some why Christianity is true, or on our channel, why all religions are horse crap. And if you go to Islamic channel, you know what you're going to get. But if I would be interested in to see, like, because you're on a journey yourself, it would be interesting for people to be on that journey with you and see where you're going to land. So that would be, so you don't know what you're going to get. Like, so I will subscribe to your channel just for that part, right? So guys, link in the description, check it out. But here today, we're going to be talking about why it's okay to murder babies. Yay! But that's my position, by the way. Kay is gonna you're gonna try to convince me otherwise, right?
I'm gonna work on it.
Okay, good. All right, let's start. Give me your best starting argument or whatever. I don't know.
Well, being that you're an atheist, I'm sure you've probably seen every argument under the sun regarding abortion and religion. We often, as pro-life activists, get painted as just a bunch of religious old white men that want to control women's bodies. Unfortunately, we don't fit that stereotype at all. Being a woman, being someone that's not super religious. My argument about abortion is purely on science. And whenever it comes to arguing it from a secular perspective, my argument is that we have moral absolutes that are not at all based in religion or a belief of a higher being that kind of guides our society and allows our culture to be civilized. The idea that you should not kill other humans is something that we have agreed on as a human species. It's not okay. We shouldn't do it. Societies in all throughout history, if you look back, whenever societies and cultures have allowed that moral absolute to be challenged or make exceptions to it, you eventually see that culture, that society crumble within itself. And I think that with the allowance of targeting humans in utero simply because they're an inconvenience, that they're too small, that they don't meet our idea of what people are, has led to a certain level of apathy in our culture and our societies towards human life. And that we've just seen a downward spiral since normalizing the taking of human life in utero. So whenever I argue abortion, I'm arguing it from a purely secular standpoint, that we as human beings, as a species, have agreed that it is wrong to take the right of life away from other humans.
Okay, but if it's a fetus, why is it wrong? Like, I understand that you're saying that we agreed so many times, so many societies, it's wrong. But people come to agreements on many things that end up later realizing that that wasn't a really good standard to have, right? When it comes to a fetus that is not self-aware, that has very when do you think at what point you think you shouldn't be able to have abortion? Like at conception, like at the as soon as the egg is fertilized, because or at some so where is the limit?
I am purely 100% pro-life. I think that life begins at conception. It's scientific fact that life begins at the moment of fertilization. So I do not support abortion at any point of pregnancy for any reason.
Okay, so fertilized egg, it doesn't have a single neuron or brain cell, right? What is wrong with killing that?
Well, we have to first be honest. No one is aborting a fertilized egg because it's physically impossible to do so. But whenever we're talking about what constitutes life, even from the moment of fertilization, that fertilized egg is a new, unique, individual human being with its own DNA, everything that is going to make up that human being from where it is at that point in life, all the way up through adulthood to hopefully natural death, is already right there from the moment of fertilization. So if we say that it's okay to kill this human being because of X, Y, and Z reason, because we don't see that human being as valuable based on our perception of it, we are moving the goalposts of what is and is not okay. What is to stop us from making excuses as humans to kill born human beings based on any number of factors because of how we feel about our perception on what they are as humans.
So the factors that I care about, and again, I think, just so I understand where I might be coming from, morality for me is about not about a set of principles that we all agreed on that this is good or bad. Morality, I mean, yeah, it technically is, but it's not based on principles. It's based on consequences, right? It's about reducing harm. Okay, and the fact, so the reason why killing a zygote doesn't translate to killing born human beings to me is because I don't really care about a fetus or a zygote because they're not self-aware, and a born, human being is. So that's not. I don't need to move the goalposts. I already have a set of standards that if I get rid of a fetus, that doesn't translate into killing living human beings, right? But what is it about a fertilized, like you mentioned, it's an individual, it's a human being, but what is it about a fertilized egg that is so special compared to an egg that is not fertilized? They're both living things. They both have a potential of becoming a grown human being, and having, they all have a potential to be a human. What is it so special about, what is so magical about the moment of fertilization that makes one worthy of protecting and the other one not so much?
Okay, well, I understand that question. Well, there is a distinct difference between an unfertilized egg and a fertilized egg. An unfertilized egg has the potential to become human life. A fertilized egg is already a human life. So there's a unique distinction. If you take an unfertilized egg and you were to implant that into the uterine wall, nothing is going to happen. It does not have the ability to grow to become a grown adult human being. A fertilized egg does. It is a human life. It has already begun to live, to exist. It has its own unique DNA separate from the woman. An unfertilized egg is just simply a part of the woman's body. A fertilized egg is a unique, different individual human being.
There's nothing about the unique, like these are just the DNA being unique doesn't really mean. I mean, okay, the unfertilized egg is also a human life. It's a human cell, and it's alive, right? And the fertilized egg is also a human life. The human egg the fertilized egg cannot become a human without some support. Like if I have a fertilized human egg right here on my hand, it will never turn into a human. It needs the right sort of environment and support for it to become a human life. Just like exactly like like for example, to make an unfertilized egg turn into a grown human, you need certain conditions plus a sperm. But fertilized eggs also need certain conditions to become a human life. I mean, technically, every single cell in my body, my skin cells in the right condition, can turn into a human life, right? If you take some of my cells and put it in a lab in a certain conditions, with the right environment and the right level of support, you could make a human life out of that. But every time I scratch my hand, I'm killing a whole bunch of them, and nobody's calling out genocide for me just killing a whole bunch of my skin cells, right? So I don't like when we say this is a human life, so therefore is worthy of living, worthy of protecting. I just think like just because we label things certain, it seems like we're not looking at where's the harm, what harm we're avoiding. It just seems like we're labeling things, and based on the labeling, because we have given it this label, now we need to protect it. I mean, we're calling it a human life. Well, I don't understand what is so significant about what we call things. At the end of the day, the name of the game should be find the harm, avoid the harm. So, do you understand the difference between like you calling it a human life, so it needs to be protected, and me actually, instead of looking for definitions, looking for the harm?
No, I do understand that argument, and if we could argue about that rather than whether the distinction between human cells and human beings, because there is a distinct difference. Like, yes, if you took an unfertilized egg, you put it in a certain environment, give it the support that it needs, it can become a human life. But a fertilized egg that has already gone through the process of fertilization already is a human life. So there's that distinct difference. Like we're not just giving it a label and saying that it's a human life. There is a scientific difference between an unfertilized egg that can become human life and a fertilized egg that is a human being. From the moment of fertilization, it's a human being.
What's a human being?
Your skin cells can never become a Homo sapien, a member of the human species. They are simply skin cells. They are your DNA. They are part of you. A fertilized egg is a separate being from the mother.
My skin cells can become a full human being. You can clone me from my skin cells.
But even a clone of you is still going to share your exact DNA. It's going to be exact replica of you. It's not going to be a human being. It's going to be.
Do you think two identical twins are the same person?
No, but they share different DNA.
Identical twins share the same DNA.
Not exactly. There is going to be, on the DNA basis, if you took the DNA from one twin and the DNA from another twin, you would be able to differentiate between the two different twins. They're two different human beings. The cell, the egg, separates. They're not going to be exact. They're not clones of each other.
They do. I thought identical twins have the same DNA, completely the same. I didn't know that the claim identical twins have identical DNA is a basic tenet of human biology taught in grade schools everywhere. Identical twins come from the same fertilized egg and thus share identical genetic profiles. But according to new research, though, identical twins share very similar genes. Identical, they are not. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So it's a bit different. However, if they were the same DNA, do you think, let's say you clone, okay, so if I were cloned and I had this another person that had exact same DNA as me, You think me and that person are the same person?
If you had a person that was the exact same DNA, your DNA matched to a T, then yes, what a clone is. It's just an exact replica.
But that's not like him. I don't think that's what makes me me. What makes me me is my connectome, which involves not just my DNA. It involves my experiences, my memories, my life, my desires, my fears. You could get the same exact DNA as me and go through a different life and get a completely different person that is talking to you right now. I really don't see that much significance in, I don't think that your DNA makes you really is the entirety of you. You know what I mean?
No, it's
So,
not, but it is what makes you a human being from a biological basis.
right. So you're saying that again, but just because somebody has a unique DNA than somebody else okay. So imagine if I take one of my cells, okay, which has identical DNA to me, and take it in a lab and change the DNA a little bit. And now we have a cell that has a unique DNA that is not similar to anyone else's in the world. So it's a cell with a very unique DNA. It wasn't fertilized. It's not a sperm or an egg. It's a full on cell that could be grown into a unique human being that never existed. Okay. It came from me, but it's been tweaked a little bit because of that DNA being unique and not being similar to mine. Does that cell now need to be protected?
Is it a living human being? Is it like an unfertilized egg, or is it a living human being?
It's a living cell, take from my skin cells, and it's not exactly does not exactly it's very much like my DNA, but it's been tweaked a bit, so it's unique. So yeah.
But
I mean,
does it have the ability? Does it meet the criteria of life? Does it have the ability to grow into?
well, every single cell, every single cell in my body, other than my red blood cells, because they don't have they don't have the DNA anymore. But almost every single cell in my body has the potential of growing into a full human being, right? Um, the first reason you said that, well, they don't have the right to life is because they share the exact same DNA as me, so they're not unique. But now I'm saying, imagine if I tweaked it a little bit. We already know that every single cell in my body can be cloned, right? So they do have the potential of becoming a human being, but now I tweaked it a little bit, and now they're unique. Do they now have the right to be defended? Like, would that cell, if I go and like boop, dead now, did I just commit murder and should I go to prison for it?
Well, first of all, I don't support the idea of any woman going to prison for procuring an abortion. I don't support those who call themselves pro-life that push the idea that women should be imprisoned for getting abortions. Thankfully, there is a growing sector of the pro-life movement that does not support that. We do not seek to put women in prison for getting abortions. We understand that these circumstances can be very hard and very frightening, and very often women can be pressured or even forced into these procedures. So I don't support the idea of women being imprisoned for procuring abortions, even after it is made illegal in any version of the word, whether it's statewide or federal wide. I'm not familiar with the process of cloning. I have not looked into it, of whether or not, taking a skin cell from a person, what the process is of growing a new human being. So I can't argue about whether or not if you take a human cell, that is not it's not a human life, it is a human cell. Whether or not it would be, whether or not you would be killing a human life if you were to let that cell die or intentionally kill that cell. What I do know is whenever you take a fertilized egg and you kill that fertilized egg, you have ended the life of a human being. Same as An infant, same as an adolescent, a teenager, or an adult. They're human beings. They are part of the human species, not just their DNA, but the fact that they are individual human lives. So
Okay.
I can't argue whether or not a human cell that is going to be cloned into a human being, because I'm not familiar with the process. I can't say whether or not it would be killing a human life if that cell were not allowed to live.
Right. Why don't you think that an abortion deserves a prison sentence if you think that the fetus or a fertilized egg has the same right to life as an adult human being? Then why are you treating the fetuses differently than abortion? Like, aren't you, even if you think they have rights, aren't you giving them less rights than an adult? If you think that somebody who does abortion shouldn't go to prison for it?
No, I mean, like I said, I see that these situations are very, very difficult. They're very hard. They can be very, very terrifying. And as a culture, as a whole, not just in the US, but across the world, we have normalized abortion to such an extent where it's a part of our daily lives. It's a part of our everyday culture. I mean, if you went into a place in the world where it was common for them to slaughter each other for any invalid reason, they got mad at each other, they're having a dispute, one kills the other, and you come in and you decide that you're going to try to add some civility to their culture by making it illegal for them to kill each other, even though this is something that they have done for decades. It's all they know. I would support throwing people in prison for doing something that has been so incredibly normalized in their society. Women are very often, and we also have issues of women very often being coerced into abortions, forced into abortions, pressured by a parent, a spouse, a partner. You have women being lied to and told false information about what abortion actually does. I think that it's much more beneficial to create a culture of life where abortion is no longer seen as a need for most women. Avoiding the issues that cause women to run to abortion is going to be much more beneficial in lowering abortion rates than saying you can no longer do this, and if you do this, we're going to throw you in prison.
So once it's become, if people manage to get society in a place where it's not normal anymore, and abortion is seen as murder, right? You see abortion as murder, right? But if in that society, then do you think the charges for abortion should be the exact same as the charges for murder of an adult?
Yes, and I do think that even, as we're creating a culture of life, I do think that abortion doctors and people that perform abortions on women should be very severe as compared to, these are the people that are actually carrying out these abortions. These are the people that are coercing women into them. These are the people that are lying to women about what they do. I think from the moment that abortion is made illegal, abortion doctors, nurses, medical personnel that help in aiding and performing abortions should see these kind of punishments right from the get-go.
So in a state that the punishment for murder is the death penalty, these people should be executed?
I'm actually anti-death penalty. I don't support
death
penalty.
Okay, so if we get there, right? Let's say we got to that situation, right? Here's I think, I don't know who came up with this. I think it was Ali Rizvi who came up with this hypothetical. Imagine if there was a lab that was on fire, right? And you had, in that lab, there was like 1,000 fertilized eggs. That all of this will burn if you just let it be there, right? But also in the room that these fertilized eggs are, there's a 5-year-old kid in the corner just panicking and just sitting like this. And then you're in that room and you're about to run out, and you could either grab the 5-year-old boy and carry him and take him out and save his life, or you could grab this 1,000 fertilized eggs and take the 1,000 fertilized eggs and save them from burning. Which one of these two are you going to pick?
I'm going to pick the 5-year-old.
Why?
And that's just a natural human response, because it would trigger, the 5-year-old is what would trigger our emotional response. Just like if I was in a burning building and I saw my 3-year-old and another 5-year-old and I could only save one of them, I'm going to save my 3-year-old. You know, if I'm in a burning building with and it's also about the human brain being able to rational out who has the higher chance of survival. If I'm in a burning building with an elderly person that is bedridden and a 5-year-old, I'm going to grab the 5-year-old because they have the higher chance of surviving if I grab them. It doesn't mean that the fertilized eggs are any less human. It just means that the 5-year-old triggered my emotional response because I can see and I can feel and I can touch them as human beings, and they have the highest chance of survival. If I take the fertilized eggs out of their environment that they need to remain safe and remain alive, they're most likely going to die. And that 5-year-old died for me to just take fertilized eggs that are, yes, they're human beings, but they don't have any chance of survival if I take them out of the environment that they're in.
But what if the lab would guarantee you that, let's say in this situation, we have the technology, and well, we already have the technology, but let's say the lab guarantees you, like, listen, these fertilized eggs, if you give it to us, at least 90% of them will become living human beings, okay? Guaranteed. Then there's no risk. Give the fertilized eggs to us. They don't have a potential of being human being. We had plans to make them into full-grown human beings. They will become full-grown human beings, right? In that situation, if you pick the 5-year-old, you're saying it's because of the emotional reason, right? But logically, what would have been the right decision? Not emotionally. Like, for example, yes, for example, you know, if I go into a burning building and on one side there are one side is my baby girl and the other side is other people's baby, you know, children or whatever, I'm going to go for my daughter, right? But logically, I'm not going to say, like, if I was you know, I'm not going to say because my daughter has a more right to live. It's just like this was a emotional thing that I, you know, it made sense for me to do that because it's an emotional thing to me. But logically, if you take emotions out of it and you just wanted to do the most moral thing possible, which one would you go for? The 5-year-old or the 1,000 eggs?
Morally, on a moral standpoint or on a logical standpoint?
Well, what's moral is a logical question, isn't it? What's the difference?
Well, in this situation, if you're talking about morals, you can break it down multiple ways, because you could argue that the 5-year-old is going to suffer more because they have the ability to take in smoke inhalation, be burned by the fire, and therefore it is your moral responsibility to save the 5-year-old to keep them from suffering. Whereas the fertilized eggs do not yet have the ability to feel that kind of pain, to inhale the smoke, to die in a very brutal manner. They won't feel it. So you could argue that morally it makes more sense for you to save the 5-year-old. Whereas logically, if you were going to argue from a purely logical standpoint, one could argue that it makes more logical sense to save the fertilized eggs, because then you're saving 90 to 100 people instead of just one.
Okay, so let me come up with a different example that might actually clarify things more. Let's say do you consider a brain dead person a living human being?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So if somebody's,
whenever you say brain dead, do you mean that they have no ability to heal from the damage that is done from their brain? Like their brain will never be able to function again?
Yes, they're like
then no, because machines are what is keeping them alive. They're not alive. Their hearts are not functional. Their organs are not functional. They're not growing. They're not developing as human beings. They are dead.
Well, actually, I'm talking about a brain dead person that as long as you feed them, they're alive. You don't need like a machine. You just need to feed them. They just don't experience anything. They're like their mind is like a vegetable, right? There's no cognitive things going on. It's just like their heart keeps beating, and they're alive. They just need maybe like a UV thing to get the nutrition in the body. That's basically it. No machines needed, just nutrition.
I guess I'm not truly understanding, because it was my understanding that if the brain has died, then the rest of the body, without help from machinery, would die with it.
The brain only has enough function to do the basic operations of the body, like keep the heart beating, keep the hormones regulated, but there's nothing conscious. There's nothing being perceived. There's no thinking that is happening. Nothing is being experienced. It's only enough basic working from only enough to keep the body alive. That's what's happening. There's no perception. Yeah.
Well, I would argue that if someone is in the state of their brain functioning enough to be able to keep their body alive without the help of machines, then I don't think that I could make the argument that there's no chance of their brain ever being able to heal enough from that to come back from that.
Well, that's what the doctors are telling you. This person is brain dead. They're not going to come back.
I mean, I've read so many stories and heard so many stories about people that their families have been told that they were brain dead, and they refused to take them off of the life support that they were on, and eventually they did heal and they did make a recovery. I would never want to be in a situation where I had to decide to take someone that I loved off of life support, and I don't think that it is something that, I think that it's something that doctors approach quite passively these days. Where they say that there's no chance of somebody coming back from this, and it turns out that they do. But I would not argue that that person is dead. If they have enough brain function that is keeping their body alive, then they are living still.
But let's say, for this hypothetical, we know that they're not going to come back. Would you be okay okay, let's make it more easy. They are on life support. They do need the machine. If you unplug the machine, they will die. You need to keep paying the hospital and everybody to be able to keep them alive. But at some point, you realize that, okay, this person is brain dead. Pull the plug. There's nothing you can do. Would you be okay with pulling the plug on them? If they're brain dead, they need the machine to stay alive. You're like, you know what?
If they're completely brain dead and their body is only staying alive with the support of machines, then they have already died, and there is no bringing them back.
So what's the difference between somebody needing to rely on a machine to stay alive in a hospital than another fetus having to rely on being connected to the mother's body to be still alive? If somebody cannot stay alive if they're not connected to the machine, and you consider them dead because they cannot stay alive without being connected to the machine, then what's the difference between that? A fetus also cannot stay alive if it's not connected to the mother's body. So what's the difference there?
The difference is the fact that a brain dead person connected to a machine is already dead. The machine is the only thing, and the machine isn't really even keeping them alive. It's keeping blood circulating so that the organs don't die. A fetus is alive, and if you detach a fetus from the mother, it will remain alive for a period of time. But unfortunately, a fetus cannot sustain its own life without support from its mother. It's not dead. It just is not developed that it needs additional support to continue developing. A brain dead person is not going to develop. It's not going to their situation is not going to improve over time. Their lungs are not going to develop. Their brains are not going to become more functional. They are already dead, and the machine is just circulating to keep the organs from dying, to keep the body from decaying. A fetus is the exact opposite of that. They are thriving, but they are not developed enough to do so on their own yet. And if you from their mother, they will remain alive. depending on the level of development, it could be minutes, it could be hours, it could be even days at some points. And then eventually the fetus will pass because they cannot sustain life on their own yet.
All right, so the similarities and the differences, okay? The similarities between a brain dead person connected to a machine and a fetus is that, I mean, you say you consider the brain dead person dead because if you disconnect them from the machine, they will die. But you're saying the fetus will live on for a little bit, but technically, if you could disconnect a brain dead person from a machine, they'll also live on for a little bit before they die, right? So,
but a brain dead person is not going. He's not alive. The
why?
machines are pushing blood and oxygen through their bodies. Once that blood and oxygen filters through, the body will begin to decay. They're already dead.
Well, okay, but I don't understand the difference because they are alive because their hearts is beating, their cells are, doing what cells do in a living being. They're breathing, and the fact that if you disconnect the machine, they will die, and therefore you consider them dead. That's exactly the same situation that the fetus has. The difference that you mentioned after, I'm going to get into that. You're talking about the potential of what they could become. That's a separate discussion that we're going to get to. But in this manner, in the fact that they both will die if you disconnect them, they're completely the same. So I don't understand why you consider the brain dead person dead because they will die if you disconnect the machine, but you don't consider the fetus dead, even though the fetus also will die if you disconnect the fetus from the mother. Like, I don't understand the difference here.
The difference is that the fact that the brain dead person is continuing to decay. Even if you have a brain dead person connected to machines, their body is slowly deteriorating. A fetus is not deteriorating. They are thriving. They are growing. They are developing. They are becoming more independent with every single day. A brain dead person is not. They are slowly decaying. They are very slowly dying. If you leave a brain dead person on a machine long enough, eventually their body will decay and machines cannot keep them alive anymore. A fetus is in the exact opposite position from that. Yes, they require the mother for nutrients so that they can grow, so that they can develop, but they are not dying. They are thriving.
So the key difference for you is the potential of what they can become, right? Of them becoming. It's not about the state that they are at right now. The key thing is that
because they are thriving in that exact moment. If a brain dead person was thriving, then you wouldn't be able to make the argument that they needed to be taken off machinery. If a brain dead person was improving, that if their brain was healing, if their body was growing and developing and thriving, then taking them off of their machine would be killing them.
Okay, so, but we can say, okay, so a fetus or a fertilized egg, right, is in the process of becoming a full-grown independent adult, right? And because you're saying they're thriving to that, then taking them off of any support that could get them there is killing them, right? So again, this is why it brings me back to the difference between a fertilized egg and an egg, because an egg is also just one step behind everything that you just described, okay? So when you get to a fertilized egg, as you admitted in the example that we mentioned in the lab, when you have 1,000 fertilized eggs, you said they're not that independent. They have a much higher risk of dying. There needs a lot of work needs to be done on a fertilized egg, whether through the womb or in a lab, for them to become a full-grown independent adult. Like, if you just leave them, they will not become a full-grown independent adult, right? So there's a lot of steps that you go from a fertilized egg to a full-grown human being. An unfertilized egg, it's just one step before that. So an unfertilized egg, just like a fertilized egg, requires a lot of work for it to become a full-grown independent adult. So I don't understand the significance of that extra step that makes a fertilized egg a lot more special than an unfertilized egg. But you seem to think it's very special because you have some special. There's something special about unique DNA for you. Like you think like having a unique DNA independent from the mother or father makes the fertilized egg something unique, something that deserves to be fought for, something a life that needs to be protected. As a materialist myself, I don't think like unique DNAs are that special. Like DNAs are nothing more than just a complicated set of molecules and arranged in a certain way. That is a DNA, as a unique DNA, doesn't deserve our legal protection. I think what deserves our legal protection is the capacity for people to be self-aware and be aware of others, to have desires and fears, right? That is so for me the step that would lead to the government or anyone else involved to protect the rights of an individual against the mother or the doctor or anyone else. That the step comes when the self-awareness steps in, right? So your step between the government stepping in and not stepping in is unfertilized to fertilized, and I fail to see what is happening here that is so special that all of a sudden makes this next step so worthy of protection. But the step that I feel like the government should step in is way later, when it comes to not with brain function. Even brain function is not enough for me, right? When you have conscious self-awareness, that's the point where we think like, I think that's a much better place for the government to be like, this is an individual deserving of protection. But what do you think?
What do you constitute as self-awareness?
Oh, that's a huge topic. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize that you exist and other people exist, and other people are. Well, this is a very advanced level of self-awareness, right? A lot of animals are self-aware, but they don't have this level of self-awareness. Some animals are aware of their own existence, but a very advanced level of self-awareness is not just to be aware of your own existence, but also being aware of other self-aware, noticing that other animals in your species are also self-aware, and they're noticing your self-awareness. So that's a level of self-awareness that is unique to humans. I think elephants might have that as well, and chimpanzees. But yeah, that's what that's a very interesting discussion. And I know a huge comeback to this is like that people would say, well, Armin, it's been shown that humans are not self-aware until they hit age like around 3 or 2 or 3. So what are you going to do? Are you okay with killing 2-year-old kids? The thing is that in that situation, you're protecting the life because of how valuable that baby is to us as humans. Like we all care about a 2-year-old or 1-year-old or a born baby. The mother cares about it. As a human, as a society, we care about them and we love them. So, and the harm is to all of us if anything happens to a 2-year-old or 1-year-old. But we don't have the same sympathy or feelings to our fetuses, and that's why for the dramatic, traumatizing harm that we're going to be causing to anybody if we ever do anything to 2-year-old or 1-year-olds, that should also be illegal. But nobody has, how you mentioned in the lab, you go for a 5-year-old instead of the 1,000 fertilized eggs because of emotional reasons. Well, human beings are not wired to care about fetuses the same way they care about born babies, right? So there's no harm to us humans if we kill as many fetuses as we want, because we're not emotionally attached to fetuses. So there's nobody's being harmed if you kill fetuses. That's why I said fetus. I wanted to put a hashtag on Twitter. I don't know if it's insensitive or not. I might do it. I was going to say hashtag fetus lives don't matter. And that's my position. I don't really care what happens to fetuses. I don't see what's so special about them.
Well, here's where your argument gets a little dicey because it's incredibly subjective because you're placing human value and therefore, well, you're placing the right to life and human value on what other people do for you emotionally. So if you're going to base that argument, like if you're going to make that your argument as to why abortion should be okay because we don't have an emotional connection to the fetus, that can get really, really, really complicated, and it's a slippery slope because that argument can be used to kill born human beings because there are plenty of human beings on this earth that have absolutely no emotional connection to another human being. Whether they be, horrible people, or whether, every emotional connection that they've made, the people have passed away, or they've just fallen away from human beings. They don't interact with other people. The value of human life is not based on what they do for human beings around them or what they contribute to society. The value of human life is the fact that they're human beings, they're fellow human beings, they have the right to their own life, and therefore it is wrong for another human being to take that right away from them.
Okay, the value of human life doesn't come from, there's nothing within the laws of the universe that says that the human life has value. When we say the value of human life, this is something we made up for good reasons because we care about human life. So the people that you mentioned, the psychopaths or the evil people that they don't care about other human lives, well, they're not the majority. They're like, psychopaths are like not that. That's not a very common thing. Okay, if we say the value of human life, this is something we made up because we care about other human lives. Like that, there's an emotional motivation for us to come up with these standards. Like if you say, like, if it's dependent on people caring about human life, that's a slippery slope.
But why do we care about human life? We're going to care about all born human life, the billions of people that live on this planet. We're going to care about all other human life on the subjective idea that we have emotional connections, or they have emotional connections to other people.
Yeah, I mean, we're already there. That's like, why do you think we come up with ethical standards? Because we emotionally prefer happy human beings than miserable human beings. If that emotional, like you think this shouldn't be driven on emotion, but if that emotional drive was not there, we wouldn't even be bothering with ethical standards to begin with. Like all of the values the value of human life, we wouldn't even be arguing about the value of human life if we didn't emotionally want to preserve people's human life. It's all motivated based on our emotions. We're already there. Again, human life, there's nothing within the laws of the universe the same way that makes 2 + 2 = 4. There's nothing within the laws of the universe that also similarly says, oh, humans' lives matter. I'm not saying it's when I say we made it up, I'm not saying like it's a bad thing. We make up a lot of good things. Like, just because something is made up, that doesn't mean it's fake. It's real because we made it real. But we made it real because we care, because we want it to matter, because it matters to us emotionally. So I don't understand the argument that's saying it's a slippery slope. We are already there. And you could come up with examples of people who are psychopaths and don't care. I don't think we will ever get to human life not mattering at all because there are a few psychopaths there. Because these few, luckily for us, the people who don't care about other people's happiness or misery, they're few and far in between. So we're not in danger of ever getting there to a point that nobody cares and we are okay with just randomly killing fully self-aware, conscious humans. No, we're not going to accept that standard.
But why is that the standard? If human life matters, if human life is valuable because of some emotional response that we have as humans, then why are some human lives not considered valuable?
Right. Because not all human lives matter. Only conscious, self-aware human lives matter.
But what about conscious self-awareness makes human life valuable because of what they can contribute to you emotionally?
No, not okay. Because Okay, so because value, when we say valuable, we're talking about applying standards of, ethics that is about reducing harm. Okay, so to me, if you kill something that is not even aware of its own existence, and killing it does not harm anybody else from noticing that it's dead, to me it's just like eating salad, because salad is also alive and you're killing it. It's just a whole bunch of cells. There's nothing meaningful about putting a whole bunch of cells together. There's nothing that makes that well, I mean, there's nothing that makes us worthy of makes that worthy of protection just because a whole bunch of cells are arranged next to each other in a certain way. If ethics is about reducing harm, you either have to be reducing the harm to the entity that you're killing, or to the people that care about that entity that you're killing, and none of that applies to a fetus that is not self-aware.
So you don't think that you can harm a fetus because the fetus is not aware of the harm?
Yeah, well, because taking a life from something that is not even aware of being alive is not harmful to that thing, because it didn't even appreciate being alive.
Okay, but if you knocked someone unconscious and killed them while they were unconscious, well, they're dead and they aren't going to be able to appreciate being alive at that point.
Well, okay, no. First of all, if you kill somebody just because they're unconscious momentarily, that's not different from something that is not has never been self-aware. Like that person that is unconscious, that individual wants to live. Not only that individual wants to live, there's a whole society that will be traumatized or would be hurt by the fact that you're taking that person's life, right?
So it's okay to kill human beings as long as no one that remains living is suffering from the death of that human being.
Well, that's a hypothetical that would never come true. We do care about, we as a society suffer and get hurt by people randomly being, like, if you're asking if we lived in an alternative universe where humans didn't care about that, okay, if you're talking about an alternative universe that we didn't care if we die, like nobody, like, oh, you want me to kill me, it's okay, I don't care, like everybody didn't care, like nobody cared about continuing to live, and nobody cared about you killing other people. Yes, if they lived in that hypothetical universe, then I guess the only question would be productivity, and don't kill people because they're productive, and that would be the only question. But we don't live in that universe. We live in a universe where we want to live, and we want other people to live happy lives. So in this universe, then it doesn't make sense it would be harmful for us to just murder each other.
Yes, it would be harmful for us to just murder each other. Like I said at the beginning, we live in a culture that has come to the conclusion, we've evolved to the point where we understand that if we just go around allowing us to kill each other, that society is going to collapse on itself. It'll be mass chaos because human life has value and you can't just go around killing other human beings.
But even if society doesn't collapse, we will still be against going and killing each other because we care for each other. Okay, we came from these rules. Like, people didn't come up with these rules because, like, for example, when ancient civilizations decided, like, yeah, don't rape people, raping is wrong. Okay, like, this is not something new. Okay, first time we came up with any more ethics, people came up with, like, yeah, let's not kill each other randomly, and let's not, like, hurt each other randomly. There needs to be some consequences if people do this, right? Before religion, before all of these things, we realized that these are good ideas, right? But they didn't come, like, these standards were not always there because we realized that, if this was the norm, society will collapse. No, it was that wasn't. We just cared for each other. We just wanted to be able to function in a healthy society, and we wanted to see everybody happy and everybody getting along. That's what people wanted, and so it was about reducing harm. And none of these goals require us not to kill fetuses. We could still achieve all of these and kill as many fetuses as we want, and it will not stop us from achieving any of these goals. There's not going to be that.
Harm is physical injury, especially if it's directly inflicted. Like if you physically injure someone, then you have harmed them.
Harm. Okay, by harm I mean causing somebody misery, or that's what I mean. Like being aware of harm. Like I'm not talking about harming a tree, for example. Like if you go and scratch a tree, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking the tree is not. The tree is not being aware of anything happening to it. Doesn't have any brain cells to notice that you're doing something to the tree. I'm talking about inflicting pain or misery. That's the harm I'm talking about. And for you to inflict pain or misery, somebody needs to be aware of that pain and misery, right? Either the mother or the entity, or other human beings, or the entity itself. Okay.
So if killing a fetus is going to cause emotional trauma or harm to someone else,
Yes,
then it
that's
should
wrong.
be wrong to kill that
Yes.
fetus.
Yes. For example, if a fetus, even if fetus is not self-aware, but the mother is like, that's my baby, I will be hurt if this baby dies, then nobody has the right to kill that baby. Okay. But then
you
if
make the argument that the idea, I have no emotional connection to the people that were just killed over in the blast in Beirut today. But it does emotionally harm me knowing that probably hundreds of people died today. And as a pro-life activist, it physically hurts me. It emotionally hurts me knowing that hundreds of preborn lives are taken every day.
So your emotional pain should be part of the calculation. I agree, right? But your emotional pain should now be put next to the mother's emotional pain, because I don't care about the fetus. Now I only care about your emotional pain versus the mother's emotional pain. Like if we got to a world where more people were emotionally okay, and the mother's emotional pain is like, you know what, I can't live this life. This is not something I could do. So I think that the emotional trauma that the mom is going through will be much more significant than the emotional trauma that you're going to go through if the mother does abortion. And also, if we live in a society that the government has the right to tell people to give up their bodily autonomy to keep another entity alive, even if it was self-aware, I think the consequences from that, when it comes to misery to society, is going to be way more than the emotional pain that you're feeling right now from fetuses dying, right? So yeah, I do care about your emotional pain that you're experiencing, but I'm weighing it against the mothers and also the consequences of giving the government the authority to take people's bodily autonomy away from them for the sake of another entity. Okay. And as a libertarian, I think you could relate to that.
No, I do. And I do understand, still the Libertarian Party's stance on abortion is not having a stance on abortion, and the majority of libertarians are pro-choice. There is a growing number of libertarians that are they're transitioning to being pro-life, because abortion is violence and it violates the NAP. And but the argument, there's like two separate arguments here. If we're going to make the value of human life subjective on the emotional pain that is going to cause the people around them to justify abortion, then we have to remain consistent with that subjective ideology through to born human beings. So if we're going to say that you can kill a fetus because of the emotional pain that it might cause the mother if we don't allow her to kill the fetus, then we would have to make every case of one human being taking the life of another based on this subjective idea of emotional pain caused. So if someone kills a human being because they caused them emotional or physical trauma, we have to then go in and we don't argue it on the basis of you killed someone, it's wrong to kill another human being, therefore you are going to prison because you killed another human being. Every case of murder would need to be tried on the basis of, okay, you killed this person because this person caused this level of emotional trauma to you. So we have to line up the level of emotional trauma that they caused you to cause you to take their life against, we have to weigh that against the emotional trauma of the people that you have now caused emotional trauma to by taking that person's life.
But that's not how laws work, because when we come up with laws, it's not going to, like, even though I'm a utilitarian, I don't think it's an efficient way for, like, it's almost impossible for the government, for the justice system to come in and weigh in the harm and benefit of every single scenario. That is like, I mean, I wish they could, but that is like that would make it impossible to calculate every time. The way you come up with laws is to just based on trends and based on what is most likely to avoid the most amount of harm. You come up you come up with certain standards that are most likely to reduce harm, in most cases, right? Rather than analyzing the harm and benefit in every single scenario, right? No God, you have to have a godlike government to be able to do the cost benefit in every single scenario, right? But I'm trying to keep these like close to 1 hour. So I'm gonna give you, if you want to do any last statements, and also tell people again where to find you, or you want to have any closing remarks, I'm going to give you the chance to do that right now.
Okay, well, I think, first of all, thank you so much for having me on, because this discussion, like, I've enjoyed this so much. This is
yeah.
like the best debate that I've had on the in-depth workings of the arguments against religion, so I very much appreciate you having me.
Oh, wow.
I've been doing this for 7 years, and most arguments about abortion are very, very surface level whenever it comes to this subject. We don't really get down into the inner workings of, how humans operate, our emotional response, so on and so forth. Most people don't get that far into this argument. So I've actually really enjoyed this.
Wow.
And yeah, you guys can find me. I'm super, super active on my Twitter, probably too active on my Twitter. I tweet way too much. It's at K Fellows with a Z, so KayFellowz. And you can find me on Instagram at the same tag. I'm not super active on there, but my YouTube channel is under the same name, just to make it easier for people to find me. And I am working on getting that more regular, up and running, so that regular content is coming out on that channel. So definitely be on the lookout for more content coming on my YouTube channel.
Guys, did you hear that? She's been doing this for 7 years, and this was the best argument. That's that's awesome. Thank you for saying that. But if you want, I could send you a copy of this file of this interview, and you could upload that on your channel as well, right? Okay, good. So, and guys, again, I didn't include the Instagram. I didn't know your Instagram account, but right now the YouTube and Twitter is in the description. I'm going to also include the Instagram. So guys, all the links in the description. Go follow Kay, and also consider having her on your podcast or your channel as well. Again, okay, great. This was fun. Thank you, everyone in the live chat. Love all of you. Unless you're not subscribed, then if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, or you haven't followed us on Twitch also in the description, then I do not love you at all. But the rest of you, I love you. You can change that. You can subscribe. Anyways, bye.